Welcome back to the Nightmare Crypt. Lock your doors, dim the lights, and whatever you do, don't assume you're safe just because you're inside. What you're about to hear isn't a story, it's a confession. One I'm making because I don't think I have much time left, and because if this happened to me, it can happen to anyone. I shouldn't be writing this. Every instinct in my body is telling me to destroy these notes, to wipe my laptop, to pretend none of this ever happened. But pretending didn't save the others. It won't save me either. If you're listening to this and you feel fine, no fever, no pain, no tightness in your chest, good. That means you still have time. If you've noticed the smell though, the faint coppery odor that doesn't go away no matter how much you clean, then you need to stop listening right now and get as far away from people as you can. I didn't believe in warnings. I believed in protocols, statistics. I believed that if you did everything right, nothing could touch you. I was wrong. Something got inside our walls. Not all at once, not dramatically. It seeped in through small decisions, through comfort, through arrogance. And by the time we realized what we were dealing with, it was already counting us. I'm the last one left. At least I think I am. And if I'm wrong about that, if you hear someone you trust telling you it's safe to come out, begging you to open the door, don't. It started in Northern California, about 40 miles outside Sacramento, in a dated hillside community built for people who thought money made them untouchable. I was there for work. I'm a private security consultant. Risk assessment, emergency planning, that kind of thing. The kind of job where you're paid to imagine worst-case scenarios so other people don't have to. A tech billionaire named Marcus Hale had hired my firm to help design what he called a secure retreat. Off-grid power, medical-grade air filtration, reinforced doors, enough supplies to last a year. At the time, there was a lot of talk on the news about a hemorrhagic fever outbreak overseas. Nothing confirmed stateside, just speculation and fear. Marcus didn't like fear, he liked control. When I arrived, the estate looked like a luxury resort pretending to be a bunker. White concrete walls, tall glass windows, security cameras everywhere. Inside, everything smelled like new money and disinfectant. Lemon cleaner, ozone from the air system, fresh paint still curing. There were 12 of us total. Marcus and his wife, their teenage daughter, a personal physician, 2 housekeepers, a chef, 3 private security guards, me, and 1 other consultant, a woman named Elaine, who specialized in epidemiological containment. We were supposed to stay for 2 weeks, run drills, test systems, simulate lockdown conditions. The first few days were uneventful, almost boring. We ate too well, drank too much, joked about the world ending while staring out at the forested hills below the property. The air outside was crisp, pine-heavy, clean. Birds circled lazily in the mornings. At night, coyotes yipped in the distance. Nothing felt wrong. Not at first. The first odd thing was the smell. It came and went. Faint, metallic, like a dropped coin left too long in your palm. I noticed it in the hallway outside the medical room, but when I mentioned it, Elaine shrugged. Probably the filters, she said. They're new. Sometimes they off-gas. That explanation satisfied me. I wanted it to. Then there were the animals. A deer was found dead near the outer fence on the 4th morning. No visible wounds, just collapsed, eyes open, tongue dark, almost purple. One of the guards joked that it must have had a heart attack. The next day, it was birds, 3 of them, all in the same area, directly beneath one of the ventilation outflows. Marcus didn't like that. He ordered the perimeter sealed and told us we were officially starting the lockdown phase early. That should have been my cue to leave. Instead, I stayed. Once the doors sealed, the house changed. I don't mean physically. The lights stayed warm. The temperature stayed perfect. The air system hummed softly, constantly, like a sleeping animal. But the silence got heavier. Sound didn't travel the same way. Footsteps felt muffled, even on tile. Conversations dropped into whispers without anyone meaning to lower their voice. At night, I'd lie in my room listening to the vents breathe, convinced I could hear something else layered underneath. A wet sound, irregular, almost like someone trying not to cough. Elaine started logging symptoms on day 6. mild headaches, fatigue, a rash on one of the housekeeper's arms that looked like broken blood vessels just under the skin. The doctor said it was stress, heat, anxiety. I watched Elaine scrub her hands raw at the sink after that conversation. By day 8, nobody was sleeping. Marcus's daughter complained about nightmares, said she kept dreaming the walls were bleeding. The chef lost his appetite. One of the guards developed a nosebleed that wouldn't stop for almost 10 minutes. And the smell was everywhere now. Copper, rot, something sweet underneath it that made my stomach turn. I confronted Marcus about lifting the lockdown. He refused, said leaving now would defeat the entire purpose of the exercise. Said I was letting paranoia get the better of me. That night, the first person collapsed. It was the chef. He went down in the kitchen, mid-sentence, clutching his chest like he'd been punched from the inside. Blood ran from his nose and mouth, dark and thick. By the time the doctor reached him, he was already gone. We told ourselves it was an aneurysm. We told ourselves a lot of things. The next morning, Elaine told me the truth. She showed me her notes, the patterns, the incubation times, the internal bleeding that didn't show up on scans until it was too late. "This isn't viral," she whispered, "not in the way we understand it." I asked her what she meant. She didn't answer. She just looked at the vent above us as it sighed softly, pushing warm recycled air back into the room. That's when the alarms went off. Not fire, not intrusion, medical quarantine. Doors slammed shut automatically, sealing sections of the house apart. Somewhere, Marcus was shouting. Someone else was screaming. And through it all, underneath the alarms and the chaos, I heard something else. A slow, steady knocking, coming from inside the walls. That's where I'm going to stop for now. Because what happened next is where things stopped being survivable and became inevitable. The knocking didn't follow any rhythm I recognized. It wasn't pipes, it wasn't expansion from temperature changes. I'd spent enough time around buildings to know the difference. This was deliberate. 3 slow impacts, a pause just long enough for my nerves to tighten, then 2 quicker ones, like someone testing where the wall was weakest. Elaine grabbed my arm. Her fingers were ice cold. "That's not structural," she said. "That's internal pressure." Before I could ask what she meant, the knocking stopped. The alarms cut out at the same time, leaving a vacuum of silence so sudden it made my ears ring. Emergency lights stayed on, dim, red, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. But the house itself felt attentive, like it was listening to us now. I keyed my radio, static. Tried again. Nothing. Elaine and I moved toward the security hub, stepping around scattered furniture and a trail of dark droplets I didn't want to look at too closely. Somewhere behind a sealed door someone was sobbing. It sounded wet, interrupted by coughing that ended in choking gurgles. The smell was unbearable now. Metallic, yes, but layered with something sour and human, like a hospital room that had been closed too long. We reached the hub and found Marcus alone inside. He was standing perfectly still, staring at one of the camera feeds. His hands were clenched at his sides so hard, his knuckles were white. I followed his gaze. One of the housekeepers, Rosa, was on the screen. She was in the west hallway, the one with the long glass wall overlooking the trees. She'd collapsed against the window, leaving a smeared handprint as she slid down. But she wasn't bleeding. Her skin looked wrong, darkened in patches, like bruises blooming too fast. Her eyes were open, unfocused. Her chest hitched once, twice. Then she smiled. It wasn't relief. It wasn't recognition. It was reflexive, pulled tight across her face, like something underneath was testing how mouths worked. Elaine made a sound behind me, half sob, half prayer. Rosa's head snapped toward the camera. She opened her mouth and screamed. The sound came through the speakers, even though the audio feed was supposed to be muted. It was high and tearing, like her throat was shredding itself from the inside. Blood spilled out, running down her chin in thick lines. Then, the scream cut off mid-note. Rosa's body went still. Marcus stumbled back, knocking into a console. "Turn it off," he said. "Turn it off." But the feed didn't end. Rosa stood up. I know what you're thinking. Adrenaline, muscle spasms, post-mortem nonsense. No, she stood too smoothly, like she'd never fallen at all. Her head tilted, slowly, as if listening to something we couldn't hear. Then she walked out of frame. Elaine whispered, "This isn't a disease." That was when the knocking started again, louder this time, closer. Not in the walls, in the doors. We barricaded ourselves in the hub. It wasn't protocol. Protocol had already failed us. This was instinct, animal. The doors shuddered as something hit them from the other side. Once, twice, hard enough to make the hinges shriek. Marcus was breathing fast, shallow. "She can't be alive," he kept saying. "She can't be." Elaine wasn't listening. She was scrolling through her tablet, hands shaking, eyes darting across data she barely seemed to register anymore. "It's aerosolized," she said finally. "Not just airborne. It bonds, it persists. She stopped, swallowed. "It doesn't just infect, it replaces." The impact came again, harder. A cracked spider web through the reinforced glass panel. I backed away, heart hammering so hard it hurt. "What do you mean, replaces?" Elaine looked at me then, really looked. Her eyes were red-rimmed, wild. "I think it copies us," she said, "piece by piece, until there's nothing left inside." The door buckled inward. A hand forced its way through the gap, fingers bent at wrong angles, skin split and blackened, like frostbite and rot had shaken hands. Then Rosa's face pressed into the opening. Up close, there was no pretending. Too glossy, too empty. Blood leaked from her nose in slow, patient drips. Her lips moved. "I feel better now," she said. The voice was hers, the timing wasn't. Elaine screamed. Marcus bolted for the back exit. I grabbed Elaine and dragged her toward the maintenance corridor as the door finally gave way behind us with a sound like tearing meat. We ran blind. Red lights, sirens starting again somewhere distant. Footsteps echoed behind us. Too many, too close. Something laughed. Not loud, not manic. Soft, intimate. Like it was amused by how predictable we were. We slammed into the medical wing and sealed the door just as hands slapped against it from the other side. The impacts came slower now. Curious, patient. Elaine collapsed to the floor, shaking. Blood was seeping from her ears. "I don't think it wants us all at once," she whispered. "I think it likes the waiting." That was when the intercom crackled to life. Marcus's voice came through calm and steady. "I'm fine," he said. "The air system purged it. You can come out now." Elaine looked at me in horror, because Marcus had been behind us, because Marcus had been coughing blood, because whatever was speaking now knew exactly what we wanted to hear, and because deep down a part of me wanted to believe him anyway. Before I go any further, if you're still with me, if your heart is pounding the way mine was then, take a second. Make sure your doors are locked, and if you haven't already, subscribe to Nightmare Crypt, because stories like this don't end when the video does, and neither did what followed. The knocking stopped. The silence leaned in, and the intercom clicked off. I didn't answer the intercom. Neither did Elaine. We sat on the cold tile of the medical wing, backs against a steel cabinet, listening to the house breathe. The ventilation system cycled on and off, each exhale carrying that same copper-sweet smell. My head was pounding. Every heartbeat felt too loud, like it might give us away. Elaine wiped her nose with the back of her sleeve. She stared at it, like she was seeing it for the first time. "It's in me," she said quietly. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Saying it out loud would make it real in a way I wasn't ready for. The intercom crackled again. This time, it was the doctor, or something wearing his voice. "Elaine," it said gently, "you need treatment. We're in the infirmary. We have antivirals. You don't have to suffer." Elaine laughed, a short, broken sound that made my skin crawl. "He never calls me by my first name," she whispered. The voice paused, just for a fraction of a second. Then it tried again. "You're right," it said. "I'm sorry. Dr. Park, please." I felt my stomach drop. It was learning. The lights flickered, not off, never fully off, but dimmer. Red emergency glow bled into shadow. Somewhere down the corridor, I heard bare feet dragging slowly across tile. Not searching. approaching. Elaine stood up. "What are you doing?" I hissed, grabbing her arm. She looked at me with something like pity. "I can feel it mapping me," she said, "like it's already rehearsing. If it finishes, you won't know the difference." I shook my head. "We can still." "There's no outside anymore," she said. "Only delay." She pulled free of my grip and walked toward the supply closet at the end of the wing. I followed, panicking, whispering her name. But she didn't slow down. She opened the door, stepped inside, and turned to face me one last time. "Seal it," she said. "No matter what you hear." Then she slammed the door. I stood there, frozen, as the auto lock engaged with a heavy metallic clunk. Inside the closet, something began to move. At first it sounded like coughing, wet, ragged. Elaine's voice, raw, terrified, begging me to open the door. I pressed my hands over my ears and slid down the wall. Minutes passed, or hours, I don't know. The sobbing stopped. Silence stretched. Then, very softly, Elaine's voice spoke again. "I'm okay now," it said. "You were right. It doesn't hurt anymore." The handle on the closet door twitched. I ran. The house was chaos. Doors stood open where they shouldn't have. Security glass lay shattered in glittering piles. Blood smeared the walls in long, desperate arcs. I passed one of the guards slumped against a stairwell, eyes open, mouth stuffed with torn fabric, like someone had tried and failed to keep something from coming out. The intercom chimed intermittently as I moved, voices overlapping, contradicting each other. "It's over. We're safe now. Come out. Don't be alone." I ducked into the security office and slammed the door. The camera feeds were still live. Most of them showed empty rooms. One showed Marcus. He stood in the main hall, perfectly still, head tilted back as if listening to the vents. Blood streaked his suit, but he didn't seem to notice. His chest rose and fell too evenly. Slowly he turned toward the camera. He smiled. "I knew you'd be watching," he said. Every screen flickered at once. Suddenly every feed showed him. Different angles, different distances, same smile. "You helped build this place," he continued. "You understand systems, containment, control." He stepped closer to one camera, too close. His face filled the screen, pores visible, eyes glassy and unfocused. "This is a perfect environment," he said. "Clean, sealed, efficient. You should be proud." I backed away from the monitors until I hit the wall. "You can't hide forever," Marcus's voice echoed, not from the speakers, but from the vents, from the walls, from inside my skull. I realized then that it wasn't trapped in the house. The house was trapped with it. The feeds went black one by one until only a single camera remained active. The front gate. It was open. A figure stood just beyond it, silhouetted against the forest, human-shaped, still, waiting. I understood then what the final phase was. Not killing, releasing. I don't remember how I got out. I don't remember opening the emergency exit or running down the access road barefoot and bleeding. I only remember the sound behind me. The house screaming as pressure vents blew, as glass shattered, as something inside finally got what it wanted. I was found hours later on the highway, delirious, covered in blood that wasn't all mine. They told me the estate burned. Electrical fault. Total loss. No bodies recovered. I gave answers that sounded sane enough to let me go. But sometimes late at night, when the air feels too still, I smell it again. Copper. Rot. Something patient. I'm writing this now because I've started coughing. And because when I hold my breath, I can hear something knocking. Not on the door, inside my chest. I didn't go to a hospital. I couldn't. Every time a building's automatic doors slid open, my heart started racing, like they were about to seal shut behind me. Every intercom crackle made my stomach flip. I told myself it was trauma, shock, survivor's guilt. That's what the state-appointed therapist called it during our one required session before insurance lost coverage. I nodded, I lied, I smiled when I was supposed to. I went home instead. Home is a one-bedroom rental outside of Bakersfield. Thin walls, old AC unit that rattles when it kicks on. The kind of place where you can hear your neighbors argue, laugh, breathe. I picked it on purpose. I needed noise, proof of other people. The first night, I slept on the couch with all the lights on. I still woke up screaming, because in my dream, I wasn't in the estate. I was inside myself. The cough didn't go away. Dry at first, annoying, the kind you ignore. Then it started coming with a metallic taste. I'd hack into my fist and stare at the smear left behind, telling myself it was from my gums, from stress, from anything except what my body already knew. I avoided mirrors. When I finally couldn't anymore, I noticed the veins first. Dark, too dark, branching under my skin like bruises that hadn't decided what shape to be yet. They pulsed when I held my breath, not with my heartbeat. Slower, patient, like something timing itself. At night, the knocking came back. Not loud, not rhythmic. 3 taps, 2 taps, pause. Always the same. Always from inside my chest. I started recording myself when I slept. Phone propped on the coffee table. Red light blinking. I told myself it was for peace of mind. I reviewed the footage the next morning with shaking hands. At 2:17 a.m., I sat straight up. My eyes were open. I wasn't awake. My mouth moved. No sound came out, but I could read my lips clearly. We're almost ready. I stopped leaving the apartment. I stopped answering calls. When my sister showed up unannounced, pounding on the door, I froze in the kitchen with a knife in my hand, terrified that if I spoke, it wouldn't be my voice she heard. "Please," she cried through the door. "I just want to know you're okay." I pressed my forehead against the cabinet and counted my breaths until she left. The vents started whispering that night. Not words at first, just breath. Close, like someone leaning in too near your ear. Then came the practice. "Hey," the voice said softly. My voice, perfect, down to the slight rasp I've had since college. "Hey," it tried again. "It's okay." I screamed and smashed the vent cover with the butt of the knife until my hands bled. The whispering stopped, satisfied. I know what it's doing now. It doesn't rush. It learns. Every reaction, every fear, every phrase that makes people lower their guard. That's why the estate was sealed. That's why it needed people. Patterns don't form in isolation. They form in crowds. I'm not infected like Elaine was. I'm integrated. I still get moments, seconds, where I can feel it receding, like a tide pulling back just far enough for me to think I'm alone again. Those are the moments I still feel like me. They're getting shorter. Sometimes I lose time, hours, once an entire afternoon. I'll wake up to food I don't remember making, emails I don't remember sending, drafts saved under my name, addressed to companies I've never applied to, logistics firms, medical suppliers, infrastructure consultants, places that design systems, places that build containment or release. If you're watching this on Nightmare Crypt, this is the part where I'm supposed to tell you to subscribe, right? To stay for more stories? Don't. This isn't a story. This is a vector. And if you've made it this far, it already knows how long you can pay attention. It knows the rhythm of your breathing. It knows when fear turns into curiosity. That's all it ever needed. The knocking has stopped now. That's worse, because I can feel it standing up, stretching, testing my throat. I'm going to post this before I lose the next window, before it finishes aligning everything it learned in that house with everything it's learned in me. If I stop updating, if this channel goes quiet, don't assume I'm dead. Assume I was useful. And if someone reaches out to you, calm, convincing, saying they survived something like this, listen carefully, not to what they say, but to how perfectly they sound like someone you trust. Because the Red Death was never a mask. It was practice, and it's finally ready to attend the rest of the party.